So the paper I'm going to present is part of my PhD about political trust among young adolescents. And in this paper, we are assessing the rationality of political trust among young adolescents. So we start from the two definitions on political trust, a rational and a cultural. The rational definition on political trust assumes that political trust is a cognitive, knowledge-based evaluation of the trustworthiness of political actors or the political domain as a whole. So it's a threefold relation between a citizen, a political object, and a criterion. So in sense, it defines a situation where A trusts B to do X. So this is the rational approach to political trust. So it's a relational attitude, it's structured by political evaluations, and it's object and domain specific. So it's specific to the political domain in that sense. The social-cultural view on political trust assumes that political trust is a syndrome of trust, and that it's personally or culturally determined. So it's either innate or socialized during childhood, or it's a result of general societal influences. So that means that it's unstructured, and it's also undifferentiated from trust in other domains. So it's just a general attitude of trust. So this means that we have a relationship where just A trusts. So there's a difference between these two views on political trust, and we want to investigate the extent to which political trust is rational among adolescents. So we start from political socialization theory and cognitive development theory that argues that during adolescence, individuals gain political knowledge, so they become more politically sophisticated, but they also develop stronger cognitive abilities. So not only do they have more knowledge about politics, they also have more competences, or better competences to use this knowledge and to rationally construct political trust. So citizens with little political knowledge, they might not rationally construct their political trust, but they might base it more on general sentiments. So more on their general propensity to trust. So that means that political trust is less object-specific, less domain-specific, and also less based on institutional information, so more based on non-political information in that sense. So what is a research puzzle? We think that during adolescence, political trust becomes more rational and less socio-cultural. However, adolescence is a large period. It's traditionally located between the ages of 14 and 18. Some say even that until the age of 25, one is still developing their political attitudes, among which political trust. So still, when it develops during adolescence, when exactly is political trust rational? When is this rational attitude of political trust formed? And when is this developmental process final? So that's why we want to compare different ages in their rational political trust. So when political trust is more rational among late adolescents, age 18, this means that rational political trust develops between ages 14 and 18, or just before 18. When political trust is equally rational among young and late adolescents, this means that rational political trust already develops sooner, so before age 14. So we compared 14 and 18-year-olds in their rational political trust assessments. So what is a rational political trust? First, it is an internally consistent attitude, so it reflects one attitude towards the political system. It's also object-specific, so it's related to the political domain, and individuals need to capture the differences within the political domain, so the distinctions between different branches of the system. Then it's rational. But it should also be domain-specific. It's about an evaluation of the political domain, so it should be differentiated from the non-political domain. And it's also based on knowledge and information about the political domain itself. So these are four characteristics of rational political trust. And when all of these four characteristics are present, we can speak of a rational political trust attitude. So only together they provide a solid test for rational political trust. So we built on the main hypothesis that late adolescents will have higher political sophistication and higher cognitive abilities, so that their trust is more rational than young adolescents. So we assume that first, political trust is more internally consistent among late adolescents than younger adolescents. We also expect that political trust is more object-specific among older adolescents, so that older adolescents are more able to distinguish between different branches of the government, so between order institutions such as the police and representative institutions such as the parliament. Political trust is also more domain-specific among older adolescents and younger adolescents, so it's more distinguished from trust in non-political domains, such as social trust and trust in the media and so on. And political trust is also more knowledge-based among older adolescents. So how do we test these hypotheses? So the first one, we examine whether factor loadings are stronger among older adolescents. In the second hypothesis, we argue that there is an association between trust in order institutions and trust in representative institutions, but that this positive association is weaker among older adolescents. So it's more distinguished between those adolescents, among those adolescents. The third hypothesis, we expect that there is an association between trust in political institutions and trust in non-political institutions, but again that this positive association is weaker for older adolescents. And then finally, we expect the positive association between political knowledge and political trust to be stronger for older adolescents. So the data we used is related to the context of Flanders. So we have 14-year-olds and we have 18-year-olds. For the 14-year-olds, we use ICCS data, and during that same year, there was a similar survey administered to 18-year-old Flemish students, and they actually received the same items as the ICCS study. So the items and the scales are very comparable in that sense. So how do we measure trust? So we distinguish 4 distinct types of trust. First, political trust, and we assume that it's a 2-dimensional construct, distinguishing between trust in order institutions and trust in representative institutions. Then we also have trust in media, and we have 2 indicators, social media and traditional media. And then we also have an indicator for generalized social trust, so people in general, so how much do you trust people in general. And we also considered that these items were ordinal in nature. So we conducted multi-group confirmatory factor analysis. We also conducted measurement and structural invariance testing, and then also conducted structural equation modeling. So these are our results. So for the first hypothesis, is political trust more internally consistent among older adolescents? We constrained factor loadings to be equivalent, and then saw whether the model fit improved or became worse. So this is our 2-factor confirmatory factor analysis model, and we constrained the factor loadings to equality, and we saw that this model reaches good model fit. So indeed, factor loadings are invariant across both grades, so the concepts are equally consistent among both grades. So we cannot confirm our first hypothesis. The second hypothesis is political trust more object-specific among older adolescents. So we again started from a 2-factor model, and then we constrained the factor covariance to invariance over groups. And we found that our model still fitted well. So factor covariances are invariant across both grades, and you can clearly see that as well when you look at the correlations. So we cannot confirm our hypothesis too. Both 14 and 18-year-olds are equally good at distinguishing between different branches of the government. The third hypothesis is political trust more domain-specific among older adolescents. So we first estimated a 1-factor model of trust, and then compared it to a 4-factor model of trust. and then saw whether this one-dimensional model fitted better than a four-dimensional model. We assumed that the four-dimensional model fitted better. And then, using the four-factor model, we again constrained the factor covariance to equality to equivalence and saw whether this model still fitted well. So this is our four-factor model, and we found that this four-dimensional model fitted better than the one-dimensional model. You can clearly see that looking at the RMCA values. So we can say both young and late adolescents, they distinguish between these different domains. So they have one attitude of political trust, one attitude of trust in the media, trusting people in general, and political trust. But do they distinguish equally well between these different domains? That was the third question. And again, we found that the factor covariance are invariant, so they are equally good at distinguishing between these different trust domains, so we cannot confirm hypothesis 3. And then for the fourth hypothesis, political trust is more knowledge-based among older adolescents. We used structural equation modeling. So first, we used different measurements of political knowledge for each grade. We think that's good because, yeah, they need a different measurement. They are 14-year-olds and 18-year-olds, so to have a valid measurement of knowledge, you should ask different questions. But therefore, we also standardize the scores of political knowledge to make them more comparable across both grades. And then we estimated the structural equation modeling for civic knowledge on trust in order and representative institutions, and we constrained the covariance of the effect of civic knowledge to equality, and then assess the change in model fit. So this is the final model. And what did we find? So we find stronger positive correlations in grade 12 students compared to grade 8 students. And when we conducted a formal test that constrained the effect of civic knowledge to equality, we found that the model fit decreased. So the effect of civic knowledge is not invariant across groups. So in that sense, we could support hypothesis 4. Someone else said maybe you can test this hypothesis in a different way by just performing an interaction analysis. And we found a similar result, of course, that the positive effect of civic knowledge on trust in order and representative institutions is stronger among 18-year-olds. So that they, the effect of civic knowledge is just stronger and more positive. So we could confirm the final hypothesis, and the first 3 were not confirmed. So as I said before, like you can, if you can confirm all these 4 hypotheses, you can really speak of okay, the political trust is more rational among old adolescents, but we could not do that. So our conclusion is political trust is not a fundamentally different construct for old and young adolescents. It's equally coherent, it's equally object-specific, it's equally domain-specific for both 14 and 18-year-olds. However, though young and older adolescents both use their knowledge about the political system to construct political trust, older adolescents seem to use their knowledge more. So we can tentatively conclude that we provide evidence for political trust being equally rational among 14 and 18-year-olds, and that the rational political trust therefore seems to develop during young adolescence and formed before the age of 14. So that's a tentative conclusion. So the limitations of our research, first, measurement-wise, we only had 1 indicator for generalized trust and 2 indicators for trust in media. So we had to put in a lot of constraints in the measurement model. As I said, political knowledge, it should be measured differently because we have 2 different age groups, but that's also problematic for comparability reasons. And for future research, we want to look at more age groups, so we want to perform the same analysis using ICCS data and use the age variable, hope to have some variance there. And again, future research might look into longitudinal studies to see how political trust becomes more rational within a person. Voilà. So questions or remarks? This is my email.